Welcome back. You're still watching the game on News Central TV, and favor it to I have Opelu Adebari, all right, talking all things sports with me. It's time to go straight to another interesting sport in Nigeria. Arm wrestling, of course, in Nigeria is growing rapidly with more athletes, structured competitions, and increased awareness. Now, the recent Ibadan Open Championships showcase rising talent with intense matchups and standout performances that could present or represent Nigeria at the continental level. Now, joining us to look at the growth, challenges, and future ambition is the president of the Nigerian Arm Wrestling Federation. Samuel Jackson joins us this afternoon. Good afternoon to you, and welcome to In the Game.
Good afternoon, Favor. It's nice to be here.
All right, arm wrestling, many a times in the past or those days, people see it as a way to just sit down and score points, relax and unwind. But in recent times, it has moved into a sport where people can win medals, and it's taking a new dimension in Nigeria. Can you give us an overview of the sport's growth and development in the country?
Yeah, actually, the sport has been on for a long time, but it becomes something organized as of 13 years ago after the London 2012 Olympics in London. But the good thing about it is we've come a long way, like we said in most of our programs that we have, from improvement from Lagos to Southwest to other areas within Nigeria. Currently, as of today, we had the last 14th National Open Championship in Ibadan, where we have more than 120 athletes all over the country to participate, and we pick the best to represent us in July in the African Championship come July in Abuja.
All right, let's look at arm wrestling as a sport. From all the pictures we've been seeing, we see where two men come together and put their shoulders or their elbows on the flat surface, and then they try to do the arm wrestling. Are there any specialties that one must have before he or she can come into arm wrestling if he or she wants to be part of the sport?
Yeah, the good thing about it is you don't have to have any your body weight. Every weight has their own weight categories. We have for the youth, we have for the juniors, depending on their age. Then we have, even if you're 45, 16 years, we have the weight categories for it. Then the female side of the thing, we have the power arm wrestlers or to the blind. We have the sitting. We have more than 75 weight categories in arm wrestling. Anybody can do arm wrestling, whether you are a lady, a guy. But the good thing about it is you need to have the techniques. It's not enough for you to have the body size, body weight, but you need to understand what the technique is, and you need to understand the rules of engagement. That is, you don't need to take your hands off the pouch, and if you do that, that's a foul. And when you have two fouls, you've lost the bout. So it's very simple, and we've been doing it for a long time. Like you said, that we used to score when we were growing up. But now it's a big sport all over the world. Even in Africa, we're having the 14th African Arm Wrestling Championship that's going to be hosted in Nigeria. So it has really evolved from one country, from Egypt to Ghana to Nigeria, South Africa, and a lot of countries. We've hosted twice in Nigeria, and we're fortunate to be one of the top countries that are embracing and practicing arm wrestling in Africa.
All right, my guest, Opelu Adebari, has a question for you.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for giving us deep insights, into the world of arm wrestling in Nigeria, to be precise, because I'm sure that a lot of our viewers would never have guessed that, we have an active arm wrestling federation, and, we usually host tournaments. So, at this point in time, for a sport like arm wrestling, especially for Nigeria, I want to believe that you're starting to think into the future to know who are these stars that can possibly, rise up for Nigeria to compete against the best of the best on the global level. So my question to you is, are there any plans to try and seep in arm wrestling into different age grades, possibly even down to secondary school level? What are we doing in terms of grassroots development for arm wrestling?
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, we're working around with we had some discussion with the National Nigerian School Sport Federation, and we had a discussion also with NUGA, Nigerian University Games, and unfortunately we are not yet on board. We are taking it down to the grassroots. The 8th grade is coming up. Currently in Imo State and in Abuja, we have the secondary school games. But very soon in Lagos State, we are having discussion with Lagos State Sport Commission and to see how we can have the secondary school arm wrestling challenge. It's going to be called Academics Arm Wrestling Challenge, because in the world stage, there is under 15, there's under 18, there's under 21. And all these things we need to start, we need to catch them on young from the school. So that's what we are planning to do. Immediately after the festival, we are having the challenge for the secondary school from the southwest, starting from Lagos State. Then from there, we take it around the 6 regions of the country. But we've been doing most of these things for a long time, but just consistency and ability to withstand the economic situation of Nigeria sometimes affects the program when you are additional this program. But as a federation, we are really working hard to sustain that. And the Nigerian Olympic Committee have been very supportive. As of yesterday, we are in the Olympic Park in Limosho area in Lagos State. We need to talk to them about drug abuse and about arm wrestling and other sports. So we're really doing a lot behind the scene. But like you said, the media has been very, very helpful, especially News Central have been one of our partners. And we hope to take it more than what we are having to take it to the future.
All right, let's look at what we have in Africa now. Egypt dominated the arm wrestling event at the last African Games in Accra. Do you feel Nigeria has progressed enough in 1 year to challenge them at the upcoming championships?
We really progressed enough. We're closing the gap. Egypt have been practicing arm wrestling for more than 100 years. So it's one of those, so it's been a long time. But the good thing I can tell you is that the last time when we hosted in Nigeria, we were ranked #1 in Africa. Each of these countries know their area of strength. We are going to their own area of strength, which is the male side. On the female side, we are #1 in Africa, while Ghana follows us second. On the male side, Egypt is #1, while Mali is #2. We are trying to stabilize our own stand on, we and Ghana are really working on the area of the #2. But come July, the team and the boys are really working. They know what they need to do, and they have what it takes to really give Egypt the run for their money. The gentlemen of our own team are really, they know their opponent for more than 6 years now, 5 years now, and we are really closing the gap against Egypt. The techniques are there. We have the raw energy and talent, but we just need to go across that line to show Egypt that, you know what, we are par with you. But give it to the Egyptians, they really invested in arm wrestling, and we know what we're going to face when we come to the All-African Games in Egypt in 2027. But we're really doing a lot of work with the men team to close those gaps.
All right, before we let you go, I mean, this question is to every positives, there's a part of where, might want to look at the other angle of it. Every sport has its challenges. What are the biggest obstacles facing Arm Wrestling Federation in Nigeria, and how is the federation working to overcome them? And beyond the African Championships, what are your long-term plans for arm wrestling in Nigeria?
Thank you, Favor. Most of the federation will tell you the problem is finance. And that's true, because without finance, there's nothing you can do. And unfortunately, when we were growing up, we have a lot of corporate organizations who invested in sports. The new sport commission is working out a lot of things to see how most of the corporate entities, corporate Nigeria, will be involved in sport administration. So we don't need to every time go up in to the government for support. They are trying to see if corporate Nigeria can adopt a sport. And when we get to that level, I think we're going to cross it. So The finances is there. Then the second problem is most time is we don't have the capacity. We don't develop our own technical men to go into elected positions within the confederation and in the world. Because when you do all these things, you lose most of this sporting competition on the technical side, not even from the player side. It is from the technical side. If you don't know the rules, you don't know what it entails, there's nothing we can do about. So we need to develop that area also. Each of the federation need to invest in that area to see how our men and women can be good referees, good recorders, good technical officials, so that when we want to be cheated, they will stand up for Nigeria. Those are the areas that we are investing also. The future plan, like I said, fortunately, I spoke to Babatunde today some years back, when we are starting arm wrestling, and he asked me the same questions. I said, what's my future ambition? And I said, I want to be the African president. I want to be the world vice president or the world president. Fortunately, and I wanted to host Africa. Okay. And I can tell you, all those milestones have been achieved. I've been a world vice president for 5 years, and I've been an African president for 5 years. And we've hosted Africa. So the other one we are looking at right now locally is to get the sport into the schools, get the sports into the universities and polytechnics. Then the big catfish that we're looking at is to host the world probably in the next 5 years.
All right,
hosted Africa. So we want to see we can bring the world arm wrestlers to Nigeria for the hospitality that we have as Nigerians, to show them that it's not everything about Nigeria that you see in social media that is good. Come into Nigeria and have the best of hospitality and see the real who Nigerians are. So that is a plan and the future plans.
All right, I must say a big thank you to you, Samuel Jackson, President of the Nigeria Arm Wrestling Federation. You've been able to tell us and bring us up to speed with what your plans are for the Federation. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you, Fibo, and very nice to be here. And thank you to the New Central team. Hope to see you guys in Abuja in July. Thank you very much.
All right, hopefully I would be there. And of course, it's been interesting talking about arm wrestling and lots of questions. I mean, arm wrestling is really raking in medals right now in Africa, in the world. And it's interesting to see that Nigeria is not left out and they are putting everything possible to ensure that they have good representation and also dominate Africa.
Honestly, it's very important, considering the fact that we're a country, which also dominates in powerlifting and other strength and conditioning activities. I think it only makes sense for us to also be in the forefront when it comes to arm wrestling. But I must confess that I'm more particularly impressed with our women. Being number one in Africa, I think it's something worth celebrating. And I'm looking forward to us having more participants in international competitions. But definitely, I think you channeled a lot of questions to Mr. Samuel Jackson the right way. And I think he answered brilliantly, and he's very realistic. The fact that we know that our major competitor is Egypt, I think the first stage in terms of being a powerhouse internationally has to be being better than your African counterparts. If we're able to get into good competition with Egypt and obviously be number one in the world when it comes to number one in Africa when it comes to the men, I believe we will then be ready to compete on the global stage. But I really do hope that this seeps down through to the grassroots level so that we can then start having more and more arm wrestling athletes, so that we don't feel like we are left out, or we don't feel like we're going back to square one after this current set of athletes phase out.
All right, we hope so. And interesting to know that the popular saying goes, what a man can do and one can do even better. And this is the month of women. So, I mean, interesting to see how much they have come in sport in Nigeria. We must salute them. From basketball to athletics, they've been taking lots of sports by storm, including the Super Falcons of Nigeria.